Welcome back, Grey's fans. Today we're breaking down Season 22, Episode 8, Heavy on Me, where major life decisions and massive medical wins took center stage. First up, Richard Webber is facing a terrifying crossroads regarding his prostate cancer. Catherine flies in Dr. Kaplan, a renowned specialist, to consult. Richard initially refuses a radical prostatectomy, fearing complications that could end his career. However, he bonds with Dr. Kaplan after learning she pivoted to robotic surgery following an MS diagnosis. Inspired by her ability to adapt, Richard realizes he can't let fear dictate his life and agrees to the surgery. Meanwhile, Owen Hunt is feeling a bit stagnant compared to Teddy's recent success. He teams up with Bailey to remove a massive 35-pound tumor from a patient. By putting the patient on ECMO, the team pulls off a miracle. The adrenaline rush restores Owen's medical mojo, leading him to propose a new trauma training program for the residents. In resident news, Jules Millen is feeling lonely while watching Winston date Nurse Iris. Quan encourages her not to give up on Winston, but Jules takes a different approach. Inspired by a patient who enjoys roleplay, she heads to Joe's bar and introduces herself to a cute stranger as Sally. Finally, a quick update on the Lincoln Wilsons. Joe and Link have named the twins Peyton and Hattie. Although Joe is struggling with recovery and postpartum hormones, she proves she's still a boss. While visiting the NICU, she diagnoses another mom with eclampsia from her chair, saving the woman's life before security can even intervene. What do you think about Richard's decision to operate? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Grey's updates. Hey, lovely viewers, welcome to our channel Grey's Anatomy Official. Your official Grey's Anatomy recap, Season 22, Episode 8. Last week's episode of Grey's Anatomy ended by assuring us all that Joe Wilson was going to be okay. We love a dramatic eye-opening from a hospital bed, but this week, she's still dealing with a complicated postpartum situation. She's not the only one facing some complex life moments, though. Heavy on Me sees Richard make a major decision about his prostate cancer treatment plan. Bailey and Owen team up to remove a 35-pound tumor from a woman's abdomen, and Jules ponders if she is too aloof. I guess that last thing isn't as dramatic as cancer treatment and giant tumors, but it is important nonetheless. Let's dig into this week's episode. Richard makes his choice. There's honestly nothing like one of our Grey Sloan docs emotionally declaring that they are a surgeon with verve and feeling, reminding us that's who they are in their bones. This is exactly what Richard Webber does by the end of Heavy on Me. Richard has been through so much, hasn't he? Remember when he had a brain tumor? Or when he got cobalt poisoning from a hip replacement? Or that time Meredith told him he's the reason her mom tried to kill herself and ruined their lives? So much. And now our Chief of Chiefs is left angsting over how he should treat his prostate cancer. Well, I guess it's more technically correct to say he's angsting over how Catherine thinks he should treat his prostate cancer. Richard's already made his decision with his doctor. They're going to wait and watch. He doesn't want any kind of risky surgery. What does Catherine want? Well, she's flown renowned urologist and urologic oncology superstar Dr. Laura Kaplan in from Boston to tell Richard to have the risky surgery. It is Catherine's way. Richard's initial meeting with Dr. Kaplan and Catherine ends with him storming out. Kaplan thinks he should do a radical prostatectomy and have the entire thing removed. Richard knows the risks of that surgery, and blood clots, stroke, and injury to the rectum are just 3 in a very long list. But when he runs into Kaplan doing work in the attendings lounge while she's waiting for Catherine's plane to take her back to Boston, Richard isn't angry with her. Both of them understand how Catherine works. Kaplan apologizes for not realizing Richard wasn't the one requesting a second opinion, and she also wonders if he could consult on a patient she's working on. It seems the two become fast friends. Eventually, Kaplan opens up to Richard about having multiple sclerosis. Getting that initial MS diagnosis was terrifying. She worried she wouldn't be able to operate anymore, and it was soul-crushing. But instead, she came to see her MS as not a career ender but as a career pivot. Her symptoms, like muscle pain and leg weakness, would make it nearly impossible for her to stand in and operate, so she simply found a different way to operate. Now, she mainly performs robotic procedures. She can sit, and she doesn't need to be able to hold a scalpel. I still get to do what I love, even if it is in a different way, she tells him. Her words cut to Richard's core. When he sees Kaplan leaving later, he tells her that he rejected her opinion out of fear. If he suffers complications from a radical prostatectomy, especially a rare but very scary-sounding urosymphyseal fistula, he too might never get to operate again. Kaplan reminds him that she can treat complications, but if the cancer progresses, Richard runs out of options. And that seals the deal. He finds Catherine to tell her he doesn't want to live in fear, and all this time, it was his fear that was making medical decisions for him. He's a surgeon, and he'd be devastated to lose that part of him, but whatever happens, people can adapt. He can adapt. He's getting the surgery. A little inspiration goes a long way. See? Sometimes a person simply needs a little push to do something scary but important. Sometimes a person simply needs a little inspiration. Inspiration, as it happens, is exactly what Owen is missing these days. After listening to Teddy and Winston talk about the innovative aorta surgery they pulled off with Nora on podcasts and the like, Owen is a tiny bit jealous. Teddy deserves all the press and accolades, of course, and he repeatedly wants to make sure everyone knows he's totally fine with all this, but more and more he's feeling like his own work is stalling. He's got a case of the bloss, okay? So, when Bailey and Simone present a patient with a 35-pound benign tumor compressing all the organs in her abdomen, Owen is the only doctor who backs them up. He thinks Bailey can remove this tumor, and he wants to help. It doesn't take long for Bailey to realize Owen's motivations for joining her team might not be totally altruistic, but they are mostly altruistic, and that's good enough. She needs as many brains on this case as possible. The patient, London, has attempted surgery before, but because of the pressure on her heart, she's wound up crashing on the table before doctors can remove even part of the tumor. It's Owen who brings up putting London on ECMO so that there would be no shot of her heart failing in surgery. Good for him. It's unconventional, and London's wife, Charlie, is hesitant, but London doesn't particularly feel like waiting around to suffocate to death. She wants to live. She wants the surgery. Bailey and Owen are joined by Winston, Simone, and Lucas in the OR, and while there is more than one moment when things look bleak for London, the team work flawlessly together and eventually remove that behemoth of a tumor. I hope Owen puts it in a jug and takes it home. London is saved, Bailey is relieved, and Owen is finally getting his medical mojo back. In fact, by the end of the episode, he asks Bailey what she would think about building some type of EMS training or ambulance ride-alongs for the residents so they can learn more about thinking on their feet and get additional trauma training. Bailey tells him to write up a proposal for her. Owen Hunt is inspired again. Meet Jules. Sally. Definitely Sally. Like Owen, Jules Millen is in a bit of a slump. Hers, though, is not of the medical variety but rather stems from her non-existent social life. Jules has always been slow to let others in, a trait that sometimes has consequences like the one we saw her face last week when she dashed over to Joe's to tell Winston that she's interested in him, only to find him having drinks with Nurse Iris. It seems everyone around her is busy with other people they've let into their lives, and for Jules, well, the cheese stands alone. Lucas may not be dating Katie yet, but the two are texting regularly, and he does seem to perk up every time he hears from her. Naturally, this bugs Simone, who admonishes him for an inappropriate relationship with a patient, which is hilarious because she is currently and enthusiastically boinking an intern. Eventually, Simone realizes what Lucas is up to is none of her business, and the two manage to have a friendly conversation about getting Katie movie recs while she's laid up. Are these two healing? I will forever be holding out hope that they once again find their way to an on-call room, but for now, this is nice. Quan too seems to have mended whatever he may have messed up last week with Mohunty. Those two and their booty calls are going strong. Good for him. But Quan's not so swept up in his new situationship that he doesn't notice things are off with Jules. Remember when those two were in love with each other? It seems Quan is still a softie when it comes to Jules. Not only does he give up the race for a thrombectomy so that Jules has something to look forward to, but later he notices Jules staring longingly at Winston and realizes what her real problem is. It's Quan who tells her that Nurse Iris is merely a stop sign, not a roadblock, when it comes to her obvious feelings for Winston. He doesn't want her to give up. I do love when Quan is this sweet, but it is also deeply unsettling. Watching all her friends and her big-time crush enjoy their time with other people has Jules feeling down, and it certainly doesn't help when she once again gets saddled with a patient who comes in with some sort of relationship bent to their backstory. She always has to deal with the people who are incredibly in love. It's the universe just repeatedly hitting her over the head. When Jules meets Janet and her husband, Hal, who enjoy role-playing as doctor and patient, until Janet arrived at the hospital with a DVT and a need for an emergency thrombectomy, she's mostly confused about why they would need to pretend to be other people to be interested in the person they supposedly love. Jules is very judgy. But wouldn't you know it? At the end of a long day and another interaction with Winston in which they both clearly want to smash their faces into each other until Iris shows up, no shade, she seems nice, Jules is approached by a cute guy at Joe's, and instead of pushing him away, she invites him to sit down and introduces herself as Sally. Maybe role-playing to liven things up isn't so bad after all. On making mom friends. How about we end this recap with a quick check-in on our constantly beleaguered family of 6, the Lincoln Wilsons. Or the Wilson Lincolns. Have we landed on one of those yet? I am thrilled to tell you that Joe and Link have named their 2 new little ones, welcome to the world, Peyton and Hattie. Joe is on the mend, but it's been only 3 days since Winston had to adjust her pump lest she go into cardiac arrest, so while her heart is getting stronger, she's still being observed. The good news is she does get to spend time with her babies up in the NICU. The bad news is postpartum hormones are a bitch. Joe is crying all over the place, as is her right. After the things this woman has been through in this month alone, I'd be catatonic. Everything is turning Joe into a puddle, even a nice NICU mom named Gina, who refers to her as Peyton and Hattie's mom for the first time. The 2 women chat, Joe gives Gina some postpartum advice as a doctor, and Gina is thrilled to have her first real mom friend. It's very cute. And then Gina falls over and begins having a seizure on the NICU floor. Not so cute. Joe can't move out of her chair, but she flies into OB mode anyway. She can tell Gina is suffering from eclampsia, and if she can't follow her to the OB floor, she wants Link to be her proxy. From speakerphone, Joe demands that the intern put in charge of Gina's care administer magnesium to stop the symptoms. When he hesitates at her diagnosis of eclampsia, boy, does she ream that kid out. A glorious sight to see. Gina's going to be okay, thanks to Joe, who, yes, is still crying. She even takes Nurse Iris' head off when Iris refuses to violate HIPAA, and wishing she felt more like herself. She already misses not being able to be a real doctor at the moment. Sure, it's only temporary, and Joe will be back, but wow, is her maternity leave going to be a real doozy? Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.